everyone. My definition of a fireside chat is red wine, a fire and a dog, but we'll do our best to look relaxed and natural up here. We want to talk to you about that moment, for those of you who are thinking about becoming B Corps, that moment as a leader or a leadership team where your gut is telling you, I really want to do this. And whilst that's a really exciting feeling, there's also a really terrifying moment of, oh God, what do I do next? And who do I tell that I'm feeling like this? Because, I think for all of us, there's the moment that you say, well, if I tell 4 or 5 people in the business, then the genie is out of the jar and we sort of have to do it. And what Pip and I want to do is just talk through that journey from that realization of, yes, I'm in for this, to how you then get through to certification and a little bit afterwards in the 15 minutes that we have.
Yeah, and so I guess for me, Innocent was one of the brands that I spotted popping up that they announced when you became a B Corp. And I was always curious as to know, what was your motivation behind wanting to become a B Corp, and where did it start?
So I think in spirit, Innocent has always tried to be like a B Corp since it was founded in 1999. For me, when I took over, the penny dropped for me around B Corp. In 2016, I read the Embedding report, which was about trust of governments and business and sort of NGOs in general, and it was a disaster. Nobody trusted anybody. And I think at that moment I realized that Innocent on its own, being a good company, wasn't going to influence or change of direction. So I started to say, how do we join others and shout more loudly? And pretty quickly, if you start thinking like that, you get to B Corp. And I managed to then find a few B Corp CEOs to have that private chat with Mark from Ella's Kitchen and a few others, that then just made me go, right, we're going to do this. And at that point, we had that choice of do we go out and tell the whole company and shout about wanting to become a B Corp, and I bottled it actually, and it was the biggest mistake that I made. I said, no, let's keep it to a really small group of people. Let's get through the certification behind the scenes, and then once we're there, we'll kind of announce it to the wider company. We did that. We got through the certification, and it's hard, and we'll come on to talk about that. And went ta-da to the company, and everyone looked at us like, "What's B Corp, and why should we be part of it? Because aren't we already like this?" And that was a massive mistake that we made. And you can now tell everyone the right way of doing it, because the way that you guys are going through it, I think is a much more better way. And so I'll let you talk about what you're doing and what drove you to becoming a B Corp.
So for me, I started to become much more aware of B Corp. I'd always followed brands, and like probably a lot of people in the room, Patagonia was one of those brands I always spotted as who, not only about their product being incredibly environmentally friendly, but everything that they sort of think about as a business, they really embody how they can do good within it. And I think I always found that hugely inspiring. And it was only really in the past few years that I started to spot more and more of the brands that I find hugely inspiring, like Innocent, like Propercorn and Ella's Kitchen and Lily's Kitchen, within my sector that were starting to pop up as certifying. And that's what started to pique my interest. And, we're a relatively young brand. We've been going 4 years, and I found it was one of the things that I wanted to see if I could embed it into the business as early as possible, so that it made, as we grew, something that was so intrinsically part of our culture and DNA. And at the time that when we started to certify, we were about 12 people in the business, so still really small. And actually, when I first sort of started to look into it and saw the kind of long list that started to appear on my to-do list to get through to try and certify, I knew I definitely couldn't do it by myself, kind of pushing it. And for me, it was about how I could get every single person in my team to really start to push it forwards and kind of work on different aspects of certifying. So for us, we embedded it into every single person's objectives within this year that we've been working on it. So it was part of everyone's sort of job to help move us forwards and focus on it as a business. And also internally, similar to someone mentioned earlier about having sort of ambassadors within the business, we had sort of our brand manager, Nancy, who really, really championed it throughout the business to kind of keep people on track and made sure that it didn't slip too far down people's to-do lists.
I think in our case, we used, on obviously that small internal team that I talked about, and they were incredible, and it was, that 3 or 4, 5, 6 people that really wanted to make that happen. But we also did use some external consultants, and not in a ridiculously expensive way. It was a relatively small amount of money, and what they really helped us do was translate. We were talking about, a lot's been talked about data, and we had lots of facts and figures, but the ability to translate the way you've been talking about it into the way that the assessment talks about it is a really difficult part of the process, but an important part of the process. And there are lots of, probably, or in the room today, lots of great consultants who charge very reasonable fees. And I'm not on commission, I promise, to help do that translation. And that really, for us, helped break the back of it. And I think that was an important part of it. I guess moving on to that shareholder conversation where you as a team decide you want to do it, but then you want to sort of persuade your investors. I think we're at completely opposite ends of the scale. You're the shareholder, and I had to go to a massive multinational corporation in the US and talk about it. What was great, I think, in my case, was it wasn't a conversation. It was so obvious and right for us to do it, and they were incredibly supportive to that. And so it was literally an AOB conversation in one of our investor boards that we have 3 times a year. And so it was a very short conversation. And I think the bigger companies are starting to understand that if you've got motivated, engaged teams that want to make this stuff happen, let's make those things happen and let's learn from them. So it was great that Innocent, as a business inside another business, if you like, we were given the freedom to get on and do that. I guess the question for you is, since the point you decided, you've started to look for investment and have secured investment. How did your declaration of we're going to become a B Corp go through the journey of talking to investors?
Yeah, I mean, we actually put within our kind of investment packs when we did a fundraise that we closed in the summer. But when we put together our investment packs, we actually put it in there as a key thing that we were working on, that we were sort of striving to become a B Corp, and that it was going to be embedded within our kind of governing documents and things like that. And it was something which, as a business, all shareholders were going to sign up to, and those that were coming in would also be signing up to that commitment as well. And it was really interesting going through the process, meeting lots of different people, lots of different investment firms, and some people were highly engaged with it, really understood, whether they'd heard of B Corp or not, that they understood the premise of how important it was to have the balance within profit and purpose within the business, and those that weren't, actually, for me, it was almost a good pulse check for me to be able to sense were these the sorts of people that I wanted to bring into the business. So in lots of ways, I think it was appealing to many people to invest in a brand that is focused on profit and purpose. But as much as it also, for me, it kind of helped filter through who was it that I wanted as partners in the brand.
And I think we had a few other conversations with some others out the back just now, and I think it's a really nice to see that positive shift between actually people looking for investment and B Corps like yourselves using it as a filter to decide who they want to invest in the company, rather than the other way around of, so I think that's one of the powerful things that helps you decide. As you go through certification, there's loads of difficult choices you have to make to say, right, we are, to get the points, because most of us go on and do the BIA and you realize, oh, I've got 40 points or 50 points. How do we find our way to 80 points? What were the difficult choices that you had to make as you went on that journey to find your way towards certification?
Yeah, so when we first did the assessment, there was quite a significant gap, which initially when I saw it, I was like, oh God, this is going to take forever, and which is fine. But when we started to look at kind of the areas that we could focus on, we did focus a lot on sort of the changes that we could make within our team, within the people side of B Corp. One particular thing that we implemented was flexi working, which had been something that I'd already heard about anyway. I hadn't necessarily implemented it within the business until I thought about B Corp. We have core hours within the business where we can work between 10 and 4, and then outside of that, people can flex their time. And for me, that was a big trust thing for kind of implementing in the business. It's a really different way of working, but obviously the reason for doing it is to encourage more diversity within the business and to support the team. So I knew there were good reasons for doing it, but nevertheless, it's still a difficult thing to kind of get your head round to some extent. And we trialled it for 3 months, and actually after that 3 months, after then speaking with the team and seeing the benefit of actually having that slightly more fluid way of working, but also more focusing on output rather than just the hours that you're working in the office, I felt like it was, from a cultural piece, a brilliant thing to implement. I'd be interested to know what would be the things for you that you found more difficult to get around, particularly in a sort of larger business compared to mine.
I think for me, both in the pre-period but also in the sort of period after, it's just helped me be a braver leader. It's given a framework. When you're in the CEO job or in the leadership team, there are so many shades of grey of what's the right thing to do, what's the wrong thing to do. What's the impact of this going to be on the business? And I think being a B Corp and understanding and having the confidence that the guidance that's set out by the BAI and others is going to help move you forward has allowed us to go, right, let's just get on with it and do it. So whether that was implementing volunteering, whether that's implementing equal maternity and paternity policies, all those things that I'd been sitting on the fence for so long, it's just allowed me it's freed me up to just go, oh, come on, let's just get on with it. What's the worst that could happen? So I think, weirdly, it's given me a sort of sense of freedom to make braver decisions, which I think is a really powerful part of the journey. And I guess as you get close to certification, and you kind of cast your mind forward, you've obviously already talked to your employees about it, and they know about it. And actually, I noticed you put it on your website as well. How do you think you will now kind of carry forward with the journey, to certification and sort of beyond?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we celebrated as a team this week was actually we did find out that we became certified, which was a big moment for us in the office. What I just found so amazing about that was it was, as a team, like something which we'd all collectively pushed behind. And I think the morale in the office just felt incredible this week, and it was just brilliant to be able to have that moment for us as a team. And I think that collective ownership of this kind of movement that we've got within the business is something that we're looking at how we can shape our plans for next year. So I think some of the things which can be sort of more challenging, particularly around supply chain stuff, are things that we're trying to implement now that will have impact later down the line. So we're collectively pulling ourselves as a team together to see how we can step on our score and make even more changes in the business. And I'd be interested to know, like, from your perspective, how do you go about sort of planning and kind of pushing the business forward?
Yeah, so the first thing I had to do was stop and make sure that we had to get people fully immersed and engaged in B Corp, because we didn't get that right, as I said up front. And we've done a number of different things. First of all, we introduced the sort of concept of beekeepers with inside our business champions right across the business. We also put it on our balance scorecard, a bit like Chris from Body Shop earlier, that drives our bonus. And one of the things I love about B Corp is the continuous improvement element of it, the fact that it guides the whole business. And what we found as teams at Innocent, we describe everyone as a bunch of insecure high achievers. So once a bit like what you measure, once you give them a target and say we got 90 points out of 200, everyone's like, well, how do we get to 200? And that sense of, as they've dug into the questions in their particular area, they've gone, wow, these are really good questions about my area of the business, and it's really built confidence about what B Corp is, how robust it is, what it stands for, and therefore built that sense of engagement. The other thing that's been really great for our business is the outside in, being part of this incredible community, and the diversity of it is brilliant. From, yes, we're a big company, but I think the diversity from big to small is really, really important, and we can all learn from each other. And the B socials and the various other committees and events and sharing best practice that goes on, it is phenomenal. So even though we're a big business, we've learned so much from all the people in this room, and the fact that our employees dive into those things and come back like going, wow, do you know what these guys are doing? We should be doing that. And it's sort of it's like that flywheel, all of us helping each other, move faster. I think probably the final thing for me, which has been great about being a B Corp, is it's made me realize, and again, the realization here today that, yes, we're a big company. I believe in capitalism, but I absolutely believe it needs to change, and I feel like I'm working from within the system to try and change it as much as we can. But I realise with every day that goes passing, I've got more in common with the people outside in Extinction Rebellion, and I've got more in common with Greta and the people, on climate strike last week than I have with the nonsense that's going on, across the river, and the language and the behaviours that are coming out from some of those people. B Corp is about business building trust. It's about stepping over that line way further than any law or regulation requires you to do, to demonstrate that you mean it. And I think everyone in this room really, really means it. And I think that's really powerful. But so do those amazing students we heard from earlier. They really, really mean it too. And I stand, with them to try and drive change to a fairer and more sustainable future. Pip doesn't know this, but we've got a little surprise for her, because they did certify this week, so I get the absolute pleasure of presenting her with her official B Corp certification.
Thank you so much.